Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us at this annual CITRIS Town Hall. We have an exciting program for you today with interesting conversation and an opportunity to answer your questions. So I'm Costas Spanos, I'm the director of CITRIS at the Banatao Institute, and I would like to start by reviewing the agenda. Okay, so we break it out into three pieces. So first of all, updates from our community. I will make some remarks. I hope that Chancellor Chris is going to join us in a minute or two. All of us who have been tuning into the conversations that I think is still going on. Very interesting questions and answers there, and I'm glad to see that the leadership has showing some strong directions for the university. Then we'll go some quick updates from our community. The idea is to reflect on resilience, the resilience that we had to exhibit, and I'm happy to say that we have exhibited, reflecting and looking forward. We have a good list of invited guests that I will introduce in a minute. And then, of course, I hope to have enough time to have an open forum for Q&A. So in addition to myself and our executive director, Camille Crittenden, we're glad to have with us today Carol Chris, the Berkeley Chancellor, Theresa Maldonado, the UCOP, the Office of the President, Vice President of Research and Innovation, and of course, Randy Katz, Berkeley Vice Chancellor of Research. We'll also hear from three members of our research community: Bill Flounders, the Maldonado Lab Manager; Brady Noneke, the Director of the CITRIS Policy Lab; and Joshua Viers, the CITRIS Director for UC Merced. And at this point, I would like to ask if Chancellor Chris is online. Carol, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you so much. All of us who have been tuning into your presentation a moment ago. Thank you for the strong leadership, and good to see that the campus is in good hands. Carol, if you might want to say a few words before we proceed.
I'd be happy to say a few words. I first want to thank all of you who are listening in, participating in this meeting. This has been an extraordinary 9 months, 10 months of challenge. The triple crisis that we've been dealing with: the crisis of the pandemic, the crisis of the financial challenges consequent to the pandemic, and the crisis of social justice that many of us are really deeply concerned about. And I think, despite the fact that this has been a hard period for the campus in its life, I am so inspired by the creativity, the resilience, the dedication of our community. If we think about what we've done in relationship to COVID, we took a very conservative approach in the beginning, trying to limit campus population to about 10,000 people, developing a very frequent testing strategy with aggressive contact tracing, students getting tested twice a week, other employees once a week who spend time on campus. And we have seen a very low positivity rate, about 1% for the entire fall semester, which is really terrific. We have managed to, through our aggressive and very active contact tracing, managed to keep outbreaks from happening. There have been no COVID cases that we can assign to our research laboratories, and they've been in operation at 25% since June, and more recently at 37.5%. So that's really good news. And we now have the capacity on campus to do 15,000 tests a week. And we are bringing down the cost of testing. It's now $17 a test. It had been closer to $60 a test. So I think that's amazing. And I've been so inspired by all of the faculty who have refocused their research to do things that help in dealing with the pandemic, whether they are therapeutics in the IGI or understanding the fundamental biology of the of the virus, or kinds of interventions that are more on the engineering front. So I think that that's been extraordinary. I also think the move to remote instruction has been extraordinary. We first went into it with very little days' notice in the spring, but then we spent a lot of campus resources over the summer, helping faculty and also GSIs adapt their classes to remote delivery. And I think we have, one faculty member was telling me, it feels like I discovered a muscle I never even knew I had. And so I think we have learned things that are going to make our teaching better even after we move past the pandemic. The financial crisis has been challenging that we are dealing with. That's been caused by the pandemic, but I have every confidence we're going to be able to meet this crisis as we've met financial crises before. This is not an existential crisis for our campus. And so I think that I have keep telling my team, we have to focus on the day after. We can't be just entirely preoccupied with the current crisis, and the day after is getting closer. I think that I'm certainly buoyed by the news that a vaccine is projected to be widely available in the summer. And therefore, we will be back to a much more normal mode of operation in the fall. So I think that is very good news. So thank you.
So thank you so much, Carol. I mean, that's a very positive message, and we all need that. Indeed, today the theme is about resilience, and the campus has exhibited that resilience on all fronts: operational, academic, and of course research. So let me focus on this for a moment and take the perspectives of CITRIS. We decided to share three factors that guided and shaped our response. And you can see here the schematic: research community, tech ingenuity, a multidimensional approach. And in a few minutes, I will invite three members of our community: Bill Flounders to talk about research community, the manager of the micro nanofabrication laboratory; Brandy Noneke to talk about tech ingenuity, the director of the CITRIS Policy Lab; and Josh Viers, professor at UC Merced, the director of CITRIS there, to talk about examples of the multidisciplinary approach. I would like to say that we have many success stories, almost all of them unanticipated, because we had to do not only things differently, but we had to do different things in the last 10 months. But I would like to say that having a strong strategic plan and a good and very strong mission compass helped us a lot, because the mission stays the same. We still follow the same goal. We just go in different ways in accomplishing it. And I would like to echo what Carol said. When we go to normal, sooner or later this is going to happen. We're going to be stronger, and we're going to have many new muscles that we did not know that we had, that we can exercise. So with that, I would like to go to our strategic pillars. Many of you have seen this presentation before, and I will not go into depth, but when we decided to remap CITRIS a couple of years ago, we carefully came up with these 5 pillars of excellence, the 5 pillars by which we define our goals and measure our success on intellectual leadership, extramural funding, research infrastructure, impact to economy, and impact to the society. And you can see here a very brief summary of the 2020 strategic targets that were set pre-pandemic. Of course, a leading cross-section collaboration, cultivate industry and philanthropic support, establish at least 3 new facilities or services, incubate at least 12 tech-driven UC ventures, and reform tech policy in AI. And of course, when we set the target, the world changed. But by doing things differently and by doing different things, we have accomplished a lot. As you can see here, we had 70 events in this past year, many of them virtual, but nevertheless, these events were quite influential in various levels: conferences, workshops, and so on and so forth. Our extramural funding took a very different turn. We raised very quickly about $15 million, most of it philanthropic, most of it for specific projects that we put together in order to support vulnerable populations. And most of them, of course, in the context of COVID-19, but these were big, these are now being executed. These are big, iconic projects that are meant to be pilots that could be scaled perhaps at a national level. We did establish new research facilities. We have established the virtual thinking lab at UC Davis, the environmental robotics labs also at UC Davis, and also student programs that we shifted from face-to-face to virtual. And Professor Viers from UC Merced will reflect on that in a few minutes. And another part that showed resilience is what happens at UC Davis. They had this drone academy reaching out to high school students, and that went virtual when they sent kits to the students. And of course, students participated remotely, but they built things with their hands, and they were able to learn quite a bit that way. When it comes to venture funding, we did much more than 12. You can see here 43 ventures supported. And because now by going to a virtual scheme, we're able to again exercise this new muscle and be able to reach many more people in a much more effective way. And these are some learnings that I think we're gonna keep after we go back to this new normal. And then when it comes to impact to society, we have participated in at least 4 state task forces, including the California Commission of Future of Work, where our own Jennifer Granholm is a commissioner. Policy Lab advising California Department of Technology and Implementation of Governments of AI tools in government operations, Master Plan on Aging, and the Chair California Blockchain Working Group. So we have not been idle. The pandemic did not limit us in what we can do. And I'm happy to see that we have accomplished so much together. So as I'm prepared to turn the podium to our 3 invited speakers for the brief remarks, I would like to reflect on as a highlight on seeding tech solutions for California. You're very familiar, all of you are familiar with the CITRIS called SEED Awards. And that, of course, went on, but took a new turn because we got philanthropic support in order to expand it again in a COVID-19 context. We have also achieved quite a bit of philanthropic collaboration in starting these big projects for vulnerable populations. We have collaborated even more deeply with Tech de Monterrey in cross-funding SEED Awards for them. And CITRIS in Santa Cruz has took the initiative to develop their own very focused SEED Award program there. So quite a bit is happening. And with that, I would like to turn it to our first guest speaker, Bill Flounders, the manager of the Nanofabrication Laboratory, for some remarks on the research community. Bill.
Hey, good afternoon all. What a long, strange trip it's been. And we're not done. And I very much appreciate the Chancellor's comments of I'm starting to envision and see a day after also. The NanoLab staff have been on site every business day since the shelter in place went into effect on March 16. And even before leaving that day, we worked with the Vice Chancellor of Research to have the university status defined as an essential business to our critical suppliers so that resources needed to maintain infrastructure such as liquid nitrogen continued to be delivered to the campus. We then had a rotating team of approximately 6 staff that performed a facility safety review every day and oversaw access for select COVID-related research activities. This was our maintenance and critical research only mode that was March 17 to May 11. From May 11 to June 29, the NanoLab, as all of campus, proceeded with a phased restart preparation, installing signage and barriers, and in our case, setting up an online reservation system for lab access. And we developed a custom automated population density control software system that alerts lab members if someone tries to log in and we're at our population density limit. On June 30, the first Berkeley researchers, that's our tier 1 researchers, were able to return to work in the NanoLab under phase 2 of research recovery. On July 6, our other UC and LBL researchers were allowed to return, And thanks to the campus research management team, on August 13, our affiliate researchers were also allowed to access the lab. We still restrict our population density to approximately 25 to 30% of pre-COVID levels. But the reservation system has been pushing our researchers to work more morning, evening, and weekend hours. The NanoLab September activity was back to 70% of September 2019. And our October and November activities were at 80% of the same month last year. So research is definitely moving forward, but we continue with our work plan that prioritizes the safety of staff, researchers, and our campus and our community. I thank you all for the time for an update, and I really thank the consolidated efforts of the entire campus.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your comments and also the good work by you and the team. I would like to turn it to Brandy Noneke, Director of the CITRIS Policy Lab.
Great, thank you so much, Costas. The CITRIS Policy Lab supports interdisciplinary research, education, and engagement with policymakers and thought leaders to address core questions regarding the role of formal and informal regulation in promoting innovation and amplifying its positive effects on society. Throughout my remarks today, I'll be putting in links into the chat for more information. We're currently in the midst of dramatic transformations in our political and healthcare systems, personal and professional networks, and economy. While technology holds great promise to alleviate some of the challenges we face in all these areas, of course, ill-conceived development and deployment poses significant ethical, privacy, and security risks. The CITRIS Policy Lab connects fundamental scientific and engineering research to policy strategies that support ethical technology development and application. I'd like to highlight a few of the relevant tech policy projects we're leading to support ingenuity and resiliency in response to the dramatic transformations we're facing. First, we've partnered with the California Department of Technology to help guide the state's development of principles and operational guidelines for AI procurement, development, implementation, and monitoring across state departments and agencies. Camille Crittenden, who is the co-founder of the CITRIS Policy Lab, served as the chair of a California state government established blockchain working group to issue a report to the California legislature. In that report, they looked at the benefits and risks and provided recommended strategies that the state should pursue to maximize benefits and mitigate harms. Here in a second, I'll put a link in the chat to that report so you can check it out. In collaboration with the University of California Office of the President's Ethics, Compliance, and Audit Services, we've launched a UC-wide presidential working group on AI that will help guide the UC system's current and future uses of AI. The system-wide multi-stakeholder group will provide recommendations in the areas of human resources, health, policing, and student experiences, for example, in admissions and in retention and student success. To our knowledge, we are the first working group established that will help guide a university system in its own procurement and development and use of AI. The last research project that I'd like to highlight, we've released a report to guide the appropriate development and oversight over COVID-19 exposure notification technologies to protect privacy and security of data. I'll share a link to that report in the chat momentarily. These are just a few of the examples that we're leading, and you can check out more of our work at citrispolicylab.org. The CITRIS Policy Lab is well positioned to connect innovative and timely research coming from STEM and social science disciplines with policymakers in the public and private sectors to support responsible technology development and application. We're eager to partner with and support our researchers and practitioners in the CITRIS ecosystem on tech policy issues. We want to serve as a resource to advise on your broader impact strategies and grant proposals, especially as they relate to informing public policy. So I encourage any of you on the call today who are thinking about the broader impact strategies in your grants to please reach out to me. I'll also put my contact information in the chat. And with that, I'll turn it over now to Josh Veers.
Thank you, Brandy. Josh?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm assuming you can hear me. It's
Yes.
great to be here. I'm going to highlight a few things that I've been involved with and watching from afar and certainly very excited about. And I really think it speaks to CITRIS as being a locus for interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary research. And ultimately, really helping us focus on research resilience through this very trying time, which Chancellor Christ indicated. And I'm excited in the sense that it is a way forward as we think of 2021 and the opportunity therein. I think there's a real opportunity for our research to pave a way. And we've seen a little bit around COVID and perhaps some of the tech policy work. I happen to work in the area of food and agriculture and sustainability. And I think of California's future is really being based on those food systems. And so I'll share a little bit with you today about how I see that going forward. About 15 months ago, I had the distinct pleasure of working with former interim chancellor Nathan Brostrom at UC Merced to work with the Central Valley Community Foundation and former mayor Ashley Swearingen to develop a blueprint, a 10-year blueprint to transform the Fresno Merced metropolitan area. And it was really focused on what we called developing a regional, inclusive, and vibrant economy. And a centerpiece of that, upvoted by about 200 different stakeholders, was to be a center for intellectual and infrastructural capacity around ag food technology. What became apparent in that discussion, however, is that there is a juxtaposition between the future of labor and the future of work and perhaps displacement in the agricultural sector and all the advances that we're making at the University of California with respect to robotics, artificial intelligence, smart systems in food systems. And that started a dialogue that I'm now very happy to say was very fruitful, because what came out of that was a recently awarded MRPI known as LACA, Labor and Automation in California Agriculture, Equity, Productivity, and Resilience. This is over $3 million that's being awarded, not just to UC Merced and the lead, Tom Harmon, but also to researchers at UC Davis, UC Berkeley, UC Riverside, and UC A&R, bringing together elements of AI and robotics and the future of agriculture, but also top thinkers about the future of work, and Martin Kinney and John Zeisman, as well as tech policy and Brandy Noneke. And then bringing that together to look at environmental sustainability. And so it's really leveraging the assets of the University of California, both from an infrastructure and research domain, but also from the intellectual perspective of being leaders within the state. And I'm very happy to be a part of that. I think that's very complementary to two big awards that were recently announced. One of those led by UC Davis and Ilias Tagapoulos, a Next Generation Food Systems Artificial Intelligence Institute. That includes Tarek Zodi at UC Berkeley and Martin Kinney at Davis, again, kind of bringing together top thinkers and new infusions from NSF. NSF also awarded an ERC, Engineering Research Center, to UC Merced in partnership with UPenn, Purdue, and University of Florida, and that's on the Internet of Things for agriculture. So again, leveraging breakthroughs in information technology research in the interest of society, in this case, the sustainability of food systems. The seed funding that CITRIS provides is really instrumental to this. At UC Merced, the participants in this IoT for Ag have all been recipients of that seed funding previously. Reza Hassani, working in automation and mechanization in agricultural systems, orchards in particular. Stefano Carpine working on precision irrigation using robotics, and Aaron Hester working on hyperspectral remote sensing from drone-based observatories are all pushing the frontier. In closing, I would like to point to some resilience that we've experienced over the last 9 months or so. And obviously going to a near virtual existence has forced us to kind of rethink some things. And I really like how Chancellor Chris put it, in not just finding new muscles, but flexing those new muscles. And we're doing that in two distinct ways, in part because we focus on students. I feel that they're the lifeblood of the University of California. And so how best do we support them during this time? Well, in one case, UC Davis has a drone academy that they're standing up that has gone nearly virtual. And they're bringing drones to the students because the students can't come to the drones. Likewise, at UC Merced, we have a program called Next Tech Robotics, where we do middle school intervention, bringing robotics kits to middle schools and computer science students to teach them not only how to build the bots, but actually how to code them too. We've taken both of these programs completely online and virtual, which means that we'll be able to scale them into the future and really extend our resources much further. In closing, I'll just point to the sketch that's provided there. Miriam Martinez, a first-generation college student at UC Merced, is studying psychology, but we're bending her towards technology as she begins to identify how we work and the interface between human machines and the environment. So I'm excited to have her on my team and excited to stay pushing forward on these resilient food system focus.
Thank you,
Next up, I think we have some updates on how we engage in 2021. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Josh, and thank you to all of our great CITRIS speakers. So before I turn to our other distinguished speakers, Theresa, Maldonado, and Randy Katz, I just wanted to remind folks how they might be able to engage with CITRIS coming up in 2021. So as you heard from Costas, we remain very active online and otherwise. So we have a number of upcoming CITRIS seminars, not only the Research Exchange series, but also others. The CPAR series, for example, C3 Digital Transformation Institute has a series. There are other events also at the partner campuses at Merced, the Frontiers in Technology at UC Merced, and elsewhere. So please take a look at those. The CITRIS Foundry Tech Incubator is lively and operating fully virtually, and those applications are due in early January. So please take a look at those links and see if your early stage ideas would be suitable for applying to the CITRIS Foundry. We're excited for the Women in Tech Symposium coming up on March 12th. This year, it will be dedicated to human-computer interaction. There are a lot of really fascinating developments and updates that you'll be able to see there, keynote speakers, panel discussions, and we will also award the Athena Awards for Women in Technology on that occasion. Brandy mentioned ways that you could connect with the CITRIS Policy Lab if you are working on grant proposals that require broader impact statements or plans. We would be happy to talk with you about that or other tech policy projects. We will have another round of seed funding next year at some point, so stay tuned for that timeline and developments. We will probably have a call for proposals in late spring or early summer and hope to have a really robust pool of applications next year as we did this year. Finally, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of CITRIS and the other institutes for science and innovation. We're really excited about that and have been working closely with our partner institutes at QB3, CNSI, and Cal IT2. And there will be more about all of those things to come. So take a look at the short link there and join us. We'll have many things online and hopefully by next fall, we'll be able to gather in person. So moving on, I'm really pleased to be able to introduce our special guest to speak today. Theresa Maldonado is the Vice President for Research and Innovation at the UC Office of the President, and she will speak for a few minutes before Randy Katz, the UC Vice Chancellor for Research at UC Berkeley, will say a few words. Then we'll return and have a roundtable discussion and welcome your questions. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. First, I'd like to congratulate CITRIS on its 20th anniversary. The impact you have made over the years from basic research to true research translation is really extraordinary. Actually, I've not really seen anything like it. This institute and the three others are absolutely amazing. You have terrific leadership. Here at CITRIS, I've gotten to know Costas and Camille and the others on the leadership team, and they're amazing. I also want to acknowledge how the CITRIS community pulled together rapidly to award funding for COVID-19 research, vaccine research, community testing, and many other impactful projects. To me, that speaks to how the values you embrace are indeed the benefit of society when they needed help the most. I also want to acknowledge Vice Chancellor for Research, Randy Katz. He's been just an amazing partner on the Council of Vice Chancellors for Research, and every single day he took great care to make sure the Berkeley community was safe and able to get back into the lab gradually. Recently, the Council of Vice Chancellors for Research reviewed the 4 institutes. I think this was just last week. And on the council, it's not just the vice chancellors for research from the campuses, but also deputy directors from the 3 national labs and the associate vice president for research from the A&R. So all of us were privileged to listen to presentations from the 4 institutes. After 20 years, the work continues to be exceptional and very impactful over time. And you still achieve a significant external funding, which continues to be awarded. The students are excellent, and they're graduating with really important research training on the best equipment. And the VCRs are together engaged as a group to provide advocacy for these institutes. These institutes, CITRIS included, very much so, is an excellent model for our campuses and how they can work together effectively for great impact, and how we provide governance and ensure all faculty advance in their careers. So what's next? Let's look at other aspects of 2020, the wildfires. As you know, in mid-August, Northern California was pummeled by over 12,000 lightning strikes from just one megastorm, igniting over 650 wildfires. As you know, the emergency responders were scurrying everywhere, struggling to find water to put out the flames, while the utilities rushed to shut down the grid to prevent additional fires. In addition to superstorms, we see rapid intensification of these storms occurring lately. Just 10 days after this megastorm igniting the wildfires, Hurricane Laura rapidly intensified from a Cat 1 to a Cat 4 storm in just one day before hitting Louisiana, causing over $14 billion in damages. Meanwhile, COVID-19 did not take a break. The pandemic continued to wreak havoc across the globe, mixed with heightened awareness of systemic racism occurring, leading to levels of health threats, societal turmoil, and economic catastrophe not seen in decades. When you look at all the moving parts, we have a real interconnected situation here. The Council of Vice Chancellors for Research is positioned to launch a big system-wide effort in climate change, including climate justice, and we're hoping CITRIS can play a part. Last week, Assembly member Bill Quirk published an op-ed in Cal Matters, making the strong case for funding for independent science research in California. He discusses these multiple simultaneously occurring and interactive disasters occurring in California. We view this as a call to action. We believe that UC research collectively has an opportunity to drive policy directions in California, informed by nonpartisan science, engineering, data science, and medicine. We have all the research niches. We have all the experts. So how do we kick in with the systems level thinking that's needed and develop models of resiliency for our state? We will be working hard with the California Council for Science and Technology in this regard. And the culture, technical strengths, and systems thinking of CITRIS are primed to help. Finally, the Council of Vice Chancellors for Research, we're meeting with the Biden agency review teams. We've already met with OSTP and NSF representation, USDA, and Department of Energy. There will be others. This is an opportunity during the Biden transition for the University of California to voice our interests and our opinions on how the agency should be moving forward in Washington, and they are listening. So what are some big directions of inquiry for CITRIS moving forward? And how can we reimagine an inclusive societal future? Now is a great time for CITRIS to expand its horizons, and I'm hoping to be able to work with you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Those were terrific words and inspiring goals for all of us to work toward. I'll turn it over to Randy. We would love to have your thoughts around research resilience and how the Berkeley campus is handling these extraordinary times. Randy?
Yes, thank you, Camille. Actually, what I'd like to do is pick up a little bit of the discussion that Teresa just went through and talk about some of the research opportunities that we anticipate will be available to our campuses with the new Biden administration. So one of the aspects, first of all, I should say that our research enterprise, I can speak, of course, with greatest knowledge about the Berkeley campus, but I think it's representative of the other campuses as well, is the Trump administration, or the partnership, or however you wish to describe it, between the Congress and the president actually was a very good period of funding for research at universities over the last several years. In 2018, our level of extramural funding at Berkeley was about $710 million. And in the past year that closed on June 30th, we hit over $800 million in sponsored research. So that's approximately a 15% increase over the period of those 3 years. And the focus of that funding for research has primarily been in areas such as industries of the future, particularly things like artificial intelligence, microelectronics, wireless communication, advanced materials, bioeconomy, quantum computing. And several of those, of course, are areas that our institutes like CITRIS have taken a leadership role in fostering research on our UC campuses. We expect that the Biden administration will be more engaging with science to inform policy decision-making. And again, we heard earlier from CITRIS staff on the importance of the policy lab and so on. I think this is provides a very important platform for potential influence of our scientists working hand in hand with the policy experts to inform the kinds of decisions that we as a society in California, in the nation, in the world will be making in the near future. We can expect the Biden administration to increase its focus on climate and environmental research. And of course, the major challenge that we and the world as a society face is preparing for future pandemics. A very interesting news item that I saw today was a retroactive study of blood samples that had been taken nationally that dated back to December of 2019 and early January of 2020. And they analyzed those donated blood samples for the presence of COVID-19 virus. And they were able to track the development over a very small window of time of no detection of the virus to extremely high levels in really the space of about 3 weeks. So one does ask about what our national surveillance capability is for, sort of discovering is the nation at risk for a future pandemic? What are the ways of organizing society to address that, and so on? And there will be, the research community will really be called upon, I think, to assist the nation in this arena. The kinds of innovation, entrepreneurship kinds of programs that are also fostered by institutes like CITRIS are going to be very important going forward as we hopefully will innovate our way out of the current economic challenges that we face as a society. And this is particularly prevalent for California because, again, if you've been reading the news, or particularly over the last few days, Elon Musk has moved from California to Texas. He's moving a production of Tesla vehicles to Texas. There is a growing groundswell of industry movement. Hewlett-Packard, of course, the founding corporation of Silicon Valley, is moving its headquarters to Houston. These are challenges for California to remain competitive and to remain the star of scientific discovery, engineering, excellence, and innovation, we're facing some very, very big challenges to be able to maintain our role in that. And of course, our universities and institutes like CITRIS, which bring to bear the expertise across multiple campuses on these cutting edge societal challenges, bringing to bear science, engineering expertise to the study and the advancement of solutions to these problems, are going to be crucial for the success of the California economy moving forward against some very, very heavy headwinds. So my sense of the high priorities for the president-elect are, of course, addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are many opportunities for information technology to assist in that. Promote the economic recovery and boost American competitiveness. And by the way, California competitiveness is very, very important element of that. And again, the kinds of activities like CITRIS, which bring to bear the cutting edge of engineering and scientific research with the opportunities for translating those ideas into societal impact in the form of a new industrial activity like the foundry, is extremely important going forwards. We're well positioned with that. Expect an increase in focus on fighting climate change. And lot of conversations of exactly how the new administration will deal with this. John Kerry will be a new cabinet level position representing the point person on climate change for the Biden administration, but how to actually pursue the scientific engineering research agenda is to be seen. There is discussion of a new advanced research projects agency for climate. In addition to a health advanced research projects agency, people in Washington like the ARPA-DARPA paradigm. And so we remain to be seen how the government will organize it, but we do expect that there will be support for more and increased research in this area. And I think the final point I want to raise is the role of trying to understand the social justice dimension that, again, the CITRIS Policy Lab is very well positioned, very active in this area. When you think about things like climate change, disadvantaged communities are affected by this first. And a major challenge, and I think CITRIS is well positioned to really capitalize on this challenge or offer solutions to this challenge, is how to create structures which bridge our scientific and engineering research expertise with the policy and social science expertise that's necessary to really understand societal impact and how to use science and technology to address some of these deeply seated issues with respect to, sort of inequity in how different parts of our society are affected by these great societal challenges. So I think I'll leave it with that, but I think the bottom line is CITRIS has evolved over its 20 years to always be on the cutting edge of science and engineering, but the evolution over the last several years of really engaging in sort of policy debates, bridging between the science and technology and the social justice and policy issues, the ability to really address some of the rapid response to COVID-19 from a scientific and engineering perspective are all elements of the kinds of agile research infrastructure the nation needs as we move forward into 2021.
Thank you, Randy. That was very well said. I appreciate those comments. I am happy to welcome Teresa back to the virtual stage. And Chancellor Christ, if she's still on the line, is also welcome to join us, as well as Costas. So we have a few questions that we might discuss just among us before we open up to further questions from the audience. And I invite folks who are listening or tuning in to use the Q&A box for your questions for this esteemed group. We would love to entertain them. So Randy and Teresa, you both touched on the need for involvement in government at various levels. So speaking to the state government, to the federal government, what advice would you have both for the CITRIS PI community? How can we be helpful? And perhaps what advice would you give to, say, Governor Newsom or to the incoming Biden transition team about how they might be able to interact with research universities and draw on the extraordinary talent that's here?
Teresa, do you want to lead off on that and I'll follow?
We're working very closely with federal governmental relations for the University of California as well as the state. So it's important to work through those offices. The University of California is very large, and so I just wanted to put that operational statement out there so we can be coordinated. I just had a meeting yesterday with the California Council of Science and Technology. It is a science and technology driven policy group, and they are embarking on a new program for the state of California on disaster resilience, and disasters being a pandemic, an earthquake, wildfires, et cetera. And so it's broadly defined. Some disasters have short terms, some have long terms like the pandemic. So just listening, every time I listen to a CITRIS technical overview, I get more ideas about how this institute could play a role in different ways. So I think all of you, you're from multiple campuses to work with your VCRs. We work together very closely, but we must remain coordinated. So operationally, that's very important so that we're not sending mixed messages to Sacramento and DC. I can tell you that neither likes the fact that if we're not organized, then they tend not to listen anymore. But I think we see a lot of opportunities in the future if we remain coordinated.
Yeah, and I should say that 3 of our colleagues at Berkeley, which I know about, are involved in the Biden transition team. So they have been invited and are participating on helping to shape the structure of those agencies. Rama Shrao and Rachel Slaybaugh are on the Department of Energy transition team, and that's going to be very important in terms of renewable energy, as well as a sort of energy-related approaches to the climate challenge going forward. Pierre Briskin is on the Department of Health and Human Services transition team. And of course, our largest single sponsor of research on our campus is the National Institute of Health, which is part of HHS, and also the COVID infectious disease. We expect the Biden administration will also re-emphasize cancer research. And we have, a lot of it is becoming ever increasingly information technology enabled. So there's roles for the kind of work that CITRIS does in many of those kinds of things. So are faculty experts helping, sort of shape the new administration as part of the answer to your question, Camille? And then I think the second thing, I have a little story to tell, which is I went to meet with, as Vice Chancellor of Research for Berkeley, with a set of individuals in the state government in Sacramento, legislators, their staff, some of, at the time it was Governor Brown, but some of his staff. And I remember particularly his sort of policy shop, analytical policy shop for Governor Brown. I met with the associate director, and she was telling me and regaling me of all the collaborations that they were having with MIT.
My gosh.
And my immediate reaction is, do you realize you can get on the phone and we could be in your office in less than 90 minutes? Why aren't you reaching out to University of California to be your brain trust on these, applying, let's say, data science to issues? I think we were talking specifically about, economic advancement of certain communities and what policies would accelerate immigrant communities to move more rapidly into American mainstream, particularly in California. So we got the experts on our campus. We have the data science, we have the policy experts, we have the labor economists. Why aren't you turning to us first? And I'm sure that at some level we are engaged in those things, but the way in which the University of California can really position itself as the scientific engineering policy, social science, et cetera, experts for the legislature, for the governor, I think is extremely important going forward. And I think things like both the California wildfires and the COVID-19 response, while sort of our political leaders are up to their eyeballs in just dealing with the emergency of the day, once they get a chance to kind of reflect a bit of how they could have better made use of scientific and engineering expertise to have a more rapid, more agile, more effective response to these emergencies. And hopefully we'll work with them to turn to the University of California to assist in that.
Thank you. Very well said. And I know it takes a lot of effort to lay the groundwork there, and it sounds like we're making some inroads, and certainly want to be a first point of contact for a lot of those questions that you raise. Maybe I'll turn to one more question if there's none that I see yet in the Q&A. But Chancellor Chris, maybe you could start with this one. We have touched in your remarks and on Teresa and Randy's as well on the importance of diversity and approaching social justice issues and questions like that. How can we do a better job of creating diverse teams within research teams and labs? What's your assessment of the trend lines there, and how can we better support, say, graduate students or postdocs who might be underrepresented, who can help to represent the whole diversity of the state and to bring new ideas and fresh perspectives to the research enterprise?
That's a great question, Camille. We have just admitted the most diverse freshman class in 30 years at Berkeley. That's really great news. And we just got the application figures for this year. We have a 28% increase in freshman applications, 8.5% increase in transfer applications. And these pools are the most diverse we've ever seen. So we're going to have the opportunity to continue to increase the diversity of Berkeley's student body. The graduate applications have also seen a big jump. So the question now becomes, how can we enable these students to succeed? And I think their success is particularly important in STEM fields. Some of our underrepresented students come in wanting to go into STEM fields, but underprepared to go into STEM fields. And some of the work that's been done show that research experiences early on really help them move powerfully into those fields, both as undergraduate and graduate students. So it's really outreach and recruitment and being always conscious of diversity or equity as a lens through which you make decisions, or through which you look when you make decisions.
Thank you, Carol. That's really the answer that we're hoping to hear. And all of us are anticipating a much more diverse student body coming in the future. And I'm also very heartened by the fact that student discovery is taking on, the much needed importance, on the front seat at the University of California at Berkeley. And this is where you can play a role out of CITRIS by engaging with these efforts to attract all these students to discovery opportunities that we can provide to them parallel to their academic advancement.
If I could say a word or two. So, I think it's of course very important that our own undergraduate students have an opportunity for research or discovery experience, and we can work to build the pipeline of broader engagement from different communities. But one of the things I get to see as Vice Chancellor for Research, as you can imagine, I'm often called in to participate in sort of major proposal, multi-campus, multi-institutional type center proposals when they're being reviewed by the funding agencies. And a very important element, I think, of the new administration will be really focusing on that term of art about broadening participation, but really doing it. And I'm thinking in particular about some of the partnerships we have in some of the science and engineering centers that have been established or in competition right now, where we work with other institutions to build a pipeline of diverse student researchers who can be engaged and have the opportunity to be engaged in scientific research as an undergraduate, let's say at an institution in Florida, but then come to Berkeley for graduate school or come to one of our CITRIS campuses for graduate school. I mean, I think that we offer an amazing graduate education and offer, you know, a significant percentage of the nation's PhD degrees across the UC system. We need to be drawing in that diverse talent to our graduate programs, as well as investing in our own undergraduates to feed into other people's graduate programs. But I'm thinking about the way in which centers and collaborations, and even within something like CITRIS, some of the partnering campuses can help us recruit to our graduate programs a more diverse student body.
That's true. And of course, the other CITRIS campuses, Merced, Santa Cruz, and Davis, are already Hispanic serving institutions by that designation. And I know Berkeley is on the way. We have a path to get there. Teresa, did you want to speak to that at all before we go?
Yes, and I was going to just make that point. Last year there were 5 HSIs in the University of California. I think I learned the other day there are 6, and I don't know who stepped up to be the 6th one. Do you know, Carol, which one is the 6th campus?
The only ones that aren't, I think, are UCLA, San Diego, and Berkeley, and of course it doesn't apply to UCSF. So the other campus.
Right. Okay, so they're not, and so as Randy was pointing to, is multi-campus centers that are under review at NSF, et cetera. And it's let me just add that the obvious that, you know, the faculty come from all over the world, students come from all over the world, and they're all in the departments or research groups. And so the self-awareness and implicit biases that we may carry, everyone has them. And so it's one thing to get students into programs. We want to keep them there and we want them to feel included. And so I just wanted to state that obvious aspect. Another interesting thing about the University of California system, at least three of the campuses that are HSIs are also in the AAU. And so we could be national leaders to show research excellence with a diverse community. I think we could be very powerful as a national leader in that regard.
Good point. So before we all go, we have a quick poll for everyone to take, if we can put that up on the screen. This is very easy. If you go to menti.com and enter the code that you see at the top there, and maybe we can put the link in the chat so you can just click on it. We want to know what you are looking forward to in 2021. So please take a minute just to do that here. We're getting some great answers. Hugging everyone, I like that. Renting AR goggles. Biden administration, yes. I agree, seeing colleagues, being on campus. Walking on campus, even without a mask, perhaps. Scaling impact, excellent. Vaccine, that might be one we're all lining up for to get the shot. Working at work instead of at home. Yeah, I can agree with that. How great, definitely. All those things and more. Well, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for the last hour for this CITRIS Town Hall. We're really pleased to have everyone's participation, and I'll turn it back to Costas if you'd like to say some final words.
No, I just want to reflect that how fortunate we are to have all these amazing colleagues and the leadership and all of you willing to participate and give us guidance. I just do one reflection on engaging with a much more diverse student body for discoveries. I think that we have to look at the intellectual diversity that CITRIS offers, where it is not just technology, but technology viewed through a very strong social lens. That is going to make it a much more appropriate place, a good impedance matching, as engineers would say, in order to move forward. And Teresa appreciates that analogy. Well, thank you all very much. Carol, we really appreciate your participation. Teresa, Randy, Camille and the team for putting together this amazing meeting. Bill, Brandy and Joss for participating in the presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.